Hey, this is Raul for Bass Musician Magazine, and if you were paying attention and caught my interview with extraordinary bassist Hank Horton, you will remember that we did a lot of talking about his bass amplifier, which he's absolutely thrilled with, his Katana 210 bass combo from Boss. Now, Hank is the kind of player that is very versatile. He plays electric and upright. He plays with a symphony. He plays in the pit for Broadway. He rocks out and plays, with acts and touring and stuff like that. So this amplifier has given him all of the options that he could possibly need. And again, he spent basically about a day setting it up and programming it for his specifics, but is delivering the goods for him, and he couldn't be more happy with it. Now, that said, I thought, well, let's check out some Katana bass amp ourselves. So the great people at Boss have sent over a Katana 500 bass head and a Katana 112 cab. Now, I know it's not the combo, but it's got some extraordinary features, and it's something we definitely want to look at. So let's take a closer look. Okay, as we're doing the closer look, let's start with the cab. This 112 cab has a 12-inch woofer, and it has a high-frequency tweeter. It's got a 500-watt capacity. You have your line in, which is speak on cable. You have a link out if you want to daisy chain off to a separate cabinet. And for the tweeter, you have the settings of either on or off, or you can set it to high or low. This cab has an 8 ohm impedance. The dimensions are 21 and 1/16 wide, 18 inches deep, 15 inches high. It weighs in at 36 pounds and 7 ounces, and it has one handle on one side, so you can kind of pick it up and lug it like a big suitcase. And it's got a nice covering and a grill on it, and of course the Boss Katana logo. Okay, now let's take a close look at that Katana 500 bass head, and there's a lot of things to look at here. Starting out, this is a 500 watt head at 4 ohms peak, or 250 watts at 8 ohms peak. Some of the things that we won't be looking at are some of the options. I'll get those out of the way to start out with. You can use it with foot switches, so you can use the Boss FS5L or FS6 or FS7. You can use an expression pedal, Roland EV5, Boss EV30, FV500L, FV500H. You can use the GA foot controller, GA-FC, GA-FCX. It has the possibility of an adapter where you can do Bluetooth audio for MIDI. Dimensions on this, it's 11 3/4 inch wide. It is 8 3/8 inches deep, and it is 3 13/16 high. The weight is 6 pounds, 3 ounces. So very compact. Now, when we look at the features, what's kind of challenging when you look at this, there is a clever use of very small buttons. They actually kind of look like just LEDs, but when you push them, they do stuff. Let's start with the input. Of course, you've got your quarter input jack where you can connect your bass. It has a mute button, so we all know how to use mute. It has a memory button. You can store or recall sounds that you've set up in the panel. So there's a whole approach to doing a long press, holding the button, you save it, then to recall it, you press the button without holding it down, and then you can work with your pedals and come up with a whole array of sounds. The amplifier little box, it has the pad button. When you switch on this, it is going to lower the input sensitivity. And so you want to use this if you're using a bass with a particularly high output, or you would not be using it, switch it off for ordinary use, like if you're using your old P bass or something like that. They've got an amp feel, and with this, it goes back and forth between modern and vintage sound. You've got a gain knob, which we're all pretty used to, and then you've got a shape button. And this is kind of interesting because this adds different tonal character to the amp sounds. And when you press the button, it'll toggle between 3 different types. So that same little button, you'll see it looking green, red, or orange. The effect is off when you don't see that little thing lit up. Next, we've got input of EFX. Here you can make settings for the built-in effects that are installed in there. And there's a whole lot more details, but in general, you've got the compressor button and knob, and you have a drive button and knob. You've got the blend, and what that does is switches the frequency band in which the dry sound is blended. When you press the button, that toggles 3 different types, again, green, red, and orange. So the effect is off when that indicator is dark. The knob helps adjust the level of your dry sound. Equalizer, that's going to be the easiest thing. We're all acquainted with bass, low mids, high mids, and treble. And again, here we have the interesting thing with these buttons. With the low mid, when you press the button, it toggles between 3 types. So you've got green, red, and orange. And the same is true with high mid, where you press the button, it'll toggle between 3 types as well. So not only do you have the knobs, but you've got variety on those knobs. When we look at the effects, and it says FX, clever. Here the knob controls the effects of modulation and delay, and then the tap button sets the delay time. So when you press this button 2 or more times, delay time is set to the interval between the presses. So that's a whole other thing to play with. The line out control box, this has 4 settings: custom, recording, live, and blend. And with the custom, you select a setting that you've already configured with your software. So again, this is a little more complicated, but very interesting. Rec, you want to use, that's going to give you a distantly mic'd sound for recording. Live, a close mic sound for live. Blend, a sound providing a good blend of close mic'd and distantly mic'd sound that can be used for live or recording. Next, we have bottom, and this specifies the threshold frequency limits, the low frequency region to be cut. So if you turn it all the way up counterclockwise, it'll cancel out so low frequency audio out. On the high cut button, that cuts high frequencies. Next, we have cab resonance. This feature calibrates the sound of the amp to improve the sound coming from external speakers. So if you hold down the button for at least 1 second, the button blinks red and a measurement signal is output. Once the sound calibration is complete, the button lights up. There are 2 different kinds of sound calibration. Green adjusts the entire frequency range. Orange adjusts the low frequency range. Pressing the button toggles between green, orange, and off. And you can't calibrate the sound when the mute is on. Again, it's something else to play with. Next, easier ones, we have a master and the power switch. Now, when we look around the back side, we've got, of course, our AC in jack. We have speakers out, and you can feed out to 2 speakers there, A and B, and those are speak-on connectors. We have a line out that you'd be using for DI. You can connect it to an external PA system or front of house. A select, that selects either direct, pre, or post output. Ground lift, loop hum noise may occur when other external devices are connected to the Katana bass head. So in these instances, you want to mitigate that by switching to position of ground lift switch. It should normally be set to off. We have the Bluetooth adapter connector, and that has a little cover on it. There's the USB port, so you can connect this to your computer. And that's a whole other interesting challenge there. And you may want to make sure that you're using the appropriate cable that's not designed just for charging. You want something that will transmit data there. Next, we've got foot control inputs. And so you've got your GA-FC jack, external pedal jack. For phones and recording, you've got another 1/4 inch. You can connect your headphones there, and you're going to get powerful bass sounds just as if you're playing through the speaker. Okay, there is a ton of stuff that we can show with the Katana 500 and the cab. My sound chain, I've got the 500 bass head, I've got the cab set up, I got my Asteroid cable here, and I'm using my cot bass, which is very active 18 volt bass, so that you can kind of hear. I'm going to start with the pad. When So we hit the pad here, and it's already softening there. Next thing, we're going to look at shape. We activate it in green. Go to the red. Go to orange. You can hear the subtle differences in those. Disengaged, it's off. Amp feel, let's try modern. Go all the way to vintage. And we'll turn that off. Right now I don't have any of the effects engaged. Gain, very straightforward. More or less, there we go. So let's look on the FX group. We're going to look at the comp. You can see the green light go on as it's engaged. However, you can also push the alternative and orange and off. It's green. When we turn it down, we have it disengaged. The drive the same way. Go to the red. Go to orange. Back to green, take it off. Okay, now the blend, as we engage it here. Orange, red, orange here. Turn this off with the FX. Back to green, take it down. As far as the EQ, I'm going to keep that just straight up and down. As you can tell, there's a plethora of approaches with this. Also with the line out, I'm not going to do anything with that because I'm using a dynamic mic to capture while I'm talking and all that. I'm also not going to do a calibration of the cab or anything. So the next thing we want to see is kind of this bottom. And let's pick a lower note. Okay, and if we do the high cut, red. Pick up a little bit of difference on that. Of course, master is going to make it louder. Also, I didn't show the mute. No sound. That's pretty straightforward. Memory is a little more complicated, so if you get one of these, you're going to have to figure that out. And of course, power. We're cutting it off. Let's go to our conclusions. Okay, so I'm sure there are going to be quite a few out there that are going to be thinking to yourselves, hey, I want to hear more of what this Katana bass head and cab can do. I've kind of just scratched the surface. There's so many possibilities, so many permutations. I wanted to give you an idea so you think, hey, this would work with my sound. So whether you're using the built-in effects, whether you're using a modern or vintage sound amp, there's a whole lot going on in this box, and you're really going to have to explore it and find how it works with what you're doing. Also with your particular instrument. I used my active bass for this trial. However, if you've got a passive instrument, it's not going to be a problem. It can handle it. What I noticed is a very clear, crisp sound when you want it. It's nice and clean, but you can modify it and alter it. And we didn't even get into playing around with the EQ. Now, that said, other features that I like about this, great cab size here. The size of the head and the weight of the head are excellent. They're very nice and compact and easy to take places, and plenty loud. You're putting out a lot of very clean sound. So I think this could work in many, many venues and give you lots of possibilities. And like I said, there's a whole lot when it comes to the looping and the effect, the memory, and all these things that I can't even get into because it's just, I need to study it a whole lot more. But if you give this a try, you like the way it sounds, this could be the perfect bass amp for you. If you want more information, go to www.boss.info, and there just do the lookup on the Katana bass amps. You might find that, just like Hank, a combo could be a good option for you. I'm actually curious about mixing and matching. One thing that I will add, the way I got this up as high as I had it was to stack it on top of my AccuGroove cab, just so I had easier reach. So it might sound a little different at ground level, and I'm sure if it's on carpet, but you know, you could kind of play around with this and see what is going to work best for your sound. So again, this has been Raul taking a close look at the Katana 500 watt bass head and the 112 cab from Boss, bringing you the latest and the greatest in the world of bass for Bass Musician Magazine.